Oh, look at that. Wouldn't you know it? Since we're already here, and since we are, may as well tell you about it. So, as the title suggests on this video, WEN Moon, right? If you're in the crypto space, you've heard that expression before. WEN Moon. And when is the market going to pump? Well, of course, after the Bitcoin halving, the masses expected an instant moonshot. Obviously not if you're a smart trader, you know anything about crypto and Bitcoin. In case you aren't, well, then you know this may be some news for you. The market does not typically instantly pump after a halving. That is not uncommon, and now we've seen it several times, that there's a bit of a dip, even a sideways move, but a bit of a dip for a little while. It can even last months before there's another run to the upside. And that is certainly what seems to have been the case following the most recent halving. There was a bit of a sideways move and then a dip. In fact, exactly on the day, it was a bit of a dip. And it continued several days before moving only slightly up on the 25th and then back down. And then down, and further down until we reached the relative local lows that we reached last week before the slight reversal that we saw in the last few days until yesterday, and then continuing back down until 2 days ago, continuing back down since then. Now why is that happening? Why aren't we seeing the instant moon run that the degens, the degentlemen and the degenerates of other suits are so desperately seeking? Well, because there's more sell pressure than buy pressure, right? And why is that? Well, because there's people taking profits more than there are people investing. Well, why is that? Well, any number of reasons, right? You could point to anything and say, well, that's the reason. That might be a reason. It's certainly not the only reason, right? Whether it's the CZ sentencing or the ETH, ETF prospects or the Bitcoin halving itself or whatever you want to point to, it doesn't really matter. Every day, if you look at the crypto news, the overwhelming majority of it, actually, if you stay outside of the silly nonsense about what people say about the markets, if you just look at the developments, so-and-so company is partnering with so-and-so other company to do some crypto partnership, or this company is launching this crypto thing, or this investment fund is, opening up, a crypto thing, or whatever it might be. The news is generally extremely positive about this space. So why, if it's so bullish, and has been for years and years and years, why is it so very much a wild, volatile asset class? Well, because in part, people are people, and they do emotional and irrational things, like trade with ridiculously levered up positions, and they get wrecked very quickly. So, if you're wondering why it is that the asset is not running to the upside like crazy, it's really quite simple, right? It's because when you have all this liquidity entering a market and getting wrecked so easily, they don't have any liquidity left in their hands when it's being taken out by the counterparties, who then have more liquidity in their hands and have zero interest in giving that liquidity away. Right? The smart traders are not the ones running heavily leveraged positions. The smart traders are the ones using very low or no leverage. And yes, you could say, look, MicroStrategy levered up. Yes, MicroStrategy levered up. But they didn't lever up on a small account size, taking ridiculously outsized levered positions. They used some leverage with their actual capital base, which at the time was not insignificant, right? They were running a $500 million company. Now, that's not a huge business, but it's not tiny, right? And they grew from 2020 at about a $500 million, size company to a company worth over $6 billion now just in their Bitcoin holdings. And yes, they levered up to buy that Bitcoin because they knew, well, they guessed, that the gains they would make over the coming years would make the cost of their capital borrowing insignificant by comparison. And they were right? If they were borrowing at a few percent or whatever, and they made, and they now own more than 1% of all the Bitcoin that will ever be mined. And you could say, well, Satoshi mined 1 million out of 21 million coins. That's almost 4%, 3.5, 3.8%, whatever it is. Yeah, he did. And the difference is Satoshi went away, disappeared, never to be heard from again. Now, is it possible that he's out there somewhere doing something else, and at some point in the future will disrupt the world economy by cashing out some portion or all of his million Bitcoin? It's possible. Extremely improbable, but it's possible. Now, why is it extremely improbable? Well, when you own 3% of $1 trillion market, and it's hit that number a few times in the last few years, and even before that, when it was at 20K, it was a few $100 billion market, and you still own almost 4% of that. That million Bitcoins is a million Bitcoins. You can't cash out anything. So unless he was already independently wealthy, or unless he had other wallets that nobody knows about, that he cashed out enough to live on for the rest of his life, which is entirely possible, by the way. The odds of a person staying completely modest and humble and never piping up or never, cashing out some portion of that ridiculously fantastic wealth, he could literally be like one of the richest people on the planet, right? You can have I don't know, whatever it might be, $30 billion or something at $1 trillion market, right? Whatever it is, maybe more, 30, 40 billion dollars. Now, maybe he's playing the long game. Maybe he's waiting for the coin to hit 1 million, and then he'll be, the richest man on earth or whatever. Really? I don't really think so. The probability is he's out of the game. The beauty of it is it doesn't matter, because what happens if he cashes out some portion of his coins? Well, they'll be bought back by the market. the market will be pleased as punch to have an additional 3% of coins available that were considered to be lost. Suddenly, well, not lost, but they're inaccessible. Suddenly, if they're accessible again, well, that's fantastic. And people can trade them, right? And more fortunes can be made. And lost, but also made. And then what happens if he cashes out all of them? Well, again, 3-4% more coins. If he cashes out on some portion will be available. No big deal. By the way, there are other sizable wallets with maybe not a million coins, but thousands of coins that may someday be discoverable. Okay? Like my own personal Bitcoin story, which I've told many times, where I used to be one of the very early miners, and at some point along the line, lost access to my coins because of a robbery that happened. Somebody broke into my abode and destroyed my computer and everything I had about the Bitcoin and all that stuff. So, if somebody ever finds a seed phrase to that wallet, I sure don't have it. Be nice to, but I don't. If somebody did, it'd be probably set for life, right? And there's plenty more like it. In fact, just the other day, somebody sent like $69 million worth of, it was Bitcoin or Ethereum, to the wrong address. Poof, gone forever. Right? Or maybe, I think they sent it to somebody else's address. So in which case, somebody received a lifetime of money. Yeah. It happens, right? Now, you could say, well, it's exactly reasons like that which hold back crypto from mooning. If you can just lose $69 million because you copied and pasted an address wrong, then that's not a good system. Maybe. But it still seems to be a more popular system day by day. The market is growing, not shrinking. More people are using this every day, no less. And especially people who want to send large amounts of money. Now, was it the case that the person who lost the 69 million did so because they were foolish? Because they were sloppy with their work? Or because some other glitch happened? It's possible. Any of those things is possible. Maybe they were under duress. Send this now, or something bad will happen. Could be. We don't know. I mean, I guess people will find out. But those are not reasons for the overall market to eventually just crash right away, or even in the coming years. Why? Because this market is still very young, still has a lot of maturing to do. Right? There's still a lot of development to be made. There's a ton of adoption to be made. Think about it, right? More than 99% of the people in their day-to-day lives still don't use Bitcoin. Now, at some point, that number will shift to 90%, 80%, 70%, aren't using it in their daily lives. Eventually, it'll be 50% aren't using it in their daily lives, but the other half will. Well, maybe it won't be 50%, but maybe it'll be, 80% don't use it, but 20% do. Maybe 25% do. Maybe at some point it'll be 30% that use it. in their daily lives, which would be enormous. Now, I don't expect it to ever be 100% of people using it, because, frankly, there isn't necessarily a demand for that. Because, as I've spoken about many times, there's the nature of human competition. We are competitive beings. We each want to find our own way to success. Not everyone is going to get onto the Bitcoin bandwagon, even if it's the smartest investment in the world. It doesn't mean that people won't make massive fortunes using other investment vehicles. So keep that in mind, that whatever ridiculously outsized move Bitcoin or any other crypto makes will always be, and this is a good thing, in measured step with the rest of the market, right? Even if one swings much more wildly than the others at any given point in time, overall, when there's more competition, that's good for the market, because it means there's more demand. And when there's more demand and there's enough supply to meet it, and yet there's still more demand, that's good for the market. Now, at what point will there be enough? Well, there'll be enough when there's enough, when there's saturation. But right now, while there's still technically plenty of crypto for everybody, most people aren't in on it. And most people who have a lot of money still aren't in on it. And most people who are millionaires or billionaires still are not in on it. How do you know? Well, not every billionaire and millionaire can ever own even one Bitcoin, right? Because there's far more than 21 million millionaires and billionaires in the world. And many of them own, those who are into it own far more. Like we just spoke about, Michael Saylor owns 1% of all of them, even more. Well, his company does. So, put that in your pipe and smoke it, and I'll talk to you later. Happy trading.